Alrighty, so this is my literacy full lesson. In theory, the students would be coming in as the song is playing, but they're already here and sitting down, so we're just gonna move past that. I'm gonna give them just a second more to listen to it. So imagine that the bells are so loud. Imagine that the bell's already rung. We're in our seats, and we're just gonna listen to Mozart for a second. All right, everybody. Did anybody notice something that I was playing as you were all coming into the class today?
Music.
Music. What kind of music?
Classical.
Yeah. How did that make us feel? What emotions did we feel while hearing classical music?
I felt like I was strolling along a promenade in a romance.
That's a very
piece.
Yeah, that's a really good visual example.
Very calming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Calm.
Did you feel ready to start working?
Yeah, say no.
That's okay too. Yeah.
Just because the music didn't get to wrap up and end as it normally
That's fair.
would have.
Yeah, I did have to pause it so that we could make sure we were still on time. In theory, yeah. I like how you brought in that idea of closure. Yeah. How does other type of music make you feel? Pop music or country music? Any type of music that you listen to on the daily basis?
Dancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Taylor Swift just released a new album, so I know that I feel very angsty, but also a little bit vibey. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Caitlin relates to that too. Yeah, we're making...
I love Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that's good. Do you all have any personal connections to any music that you all listen to in your daily lives?
What do you mean by personal connections?
I would say, like, does listening to a piece of music bring up any memories for you? Caitlin, your name's technically Caitlin. Caitlin Elizabeth. Elizabeth brought up her visual walking along the promenade. That could be a personal connection, even though it didn't happen to her in real life. Personal connections could be emotions. They could be thoughts, memories.
Anytime I hear the Guns N' Roses song "Sweet Child of Mine," I think of my mother in my childhood because she would slow that down and sing it as a lullaby to me and my sister because
That's
she didn't
really
know
cute.
any lullabies.
Yeah, but that is a really good personal connection, Elise. Thank you for sharing that. I know personally when I was your age in 7th grade, there was an album came out by my best friends and I really, really loved it. So I remember sitting in my bedroom and it was around this time of year and it was cold and it was dark and we just had such great memories listening to that album. Yeah, so they can really be anything. Do we think that music impacts the way... we know that we just talked about how music impacts the way that we feel emotionally, and you probably felt sleepy when your mom sang you that song, and you probably feel like you're daydreaming when you think about walking down that promenade, and I know that I often feel happy and nostalgic when I listen to music that reminds me of my personal memories. Where do those emotions come from? Where do any emotion come from in our body?
Our brain.
Our brain, yes. So today we're gonna be talking about how music impacts the brain and how when we listen to music, what things go on up inside our heads. And really the big question that we're gonna be looking at is, does music make us smarter? So if we had to just answer right now, does music make us smarter? There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Why do you feel that way?
I think it can help you think about your emotions differently, which can help with like emotional intelligence.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Any other
And it
thoughts?
gives you outlet.
A good emotional outlet. Yeah, those are two very important things that we need as humans, and as you all are growing up and being in this kind of teenage as you all are developing and you're going through a lot of things as teenagers. Middle school is hard, and so you often need a place to release everything that you're feeling. How many of you are involved in a music class other than this one? This is music appreciation. Are you all in band, choir, orchestra? Could I just get a show of hands? Every single one of you. That is crazy. I was too. And so I think it's really important to have that creative outlet. And I think there's something really special to be said about when you're making music together. That's a whole other topic of conversation that we don't have the time to go into today. But later on in the semester, we'll look at how making music together changes who we are. So today we're going to read a couple of articles about some of the research behind what music does to our brain. And in this class period, we're going to write a little bit about our own personal connections to music and kind of reflect on our learning of, does music impact the brain, yes or no? And we're answering the question of, does music make you smarter and why? So I want you all to grab a piece of paper and something to write with. And I want you to make a KWL chart. Who knows what a KWL chart is?
I'll need a refresher.
That's okay. Elise, what can you tell me?
What we know, what we want to know, and what we learn.
Yeah, so we're going to draw a line across the top and two lines going all the way down. And we're going to put K, W, L. And your chart should look like mine. So, I'm going to give you each. We're just going to look at the front page of this little packet that I've got prepared here for you. And by looking at the front page and the title of the article, we're going to think about what we already know. I want you to take a couple minutes and write what you already know about. So the name of the article is, Does Music Make You Smarter? Write what you already know about that and what you already know that music does to the brain. Elizabeth just gave us two great examples of emotional intelligence and an outlet for our emotions. So that those can be two that we already know. But I want you to take a couple minutes and look up at me once you're done. All right, we're gonna imagine that this is the whiteboard, and we're all gonna share our answers, and I'm going to write them up here so we have like a collaborative KWL chart. Who can raise their hand and tell me one thing that they had on their K column? Elise.
We were learning in band the other day that like playing music is like learning a second language, or learning how to do split second fraction equations.
Yeah. And that's so true because music is basically its own language, right? If you think about it, we have all these clefs and notations and pitches. And Elise, can you move my mouse so that it doesn't turn off? Thank you so much. What was I saying? We have pitches and notes, and we're not learning our ABCs. We're learning, I mean, we are, but it's note names ABC. Yeah, so that's a really good point, Elise. Caitlin.
I said like math skills.
Sure.
Because you have to deal with time signatures.
Yeah.
And counting and stuff.
Yeah. I'm working on a piece for one of my other classes, one of my real college classes, but I'm having to conduct in 12/8, and that's a time signature that I've never had to conduct in before. So, yeah, I have to figure out where the beat goes and how many beats go in a measure. So there's a lot of multitasking, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
It improves like the way that your brain processes sounds, like
Mhm.
listening skills.
In classical music especially, there's a lot of things happening at once, and I know I'm a choir kid, and in choir music there's a lot of moving lines. If we're not, and this is a little bit advanced for this class, but we have what's called syllabic music, and it's when the music lines up with the syllables, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes there's melismas and there's multiple notes on a syllable, and sometimes there's people saying different things at the same time, and it gets really crazy, and so there's a lot to have to focus on. Yeah. I know. What were you? Do you have another one?
The way that you connect with others.
Oh yeah, interpersonal skills is a word to sum all of that up. Yeah, we have to. Sometimes music is me standing alone singing, but most of the time when I'm singing, I'm with other people and we're having to connect. And in choir especially, we're thinking about the words that we're saying and what that means to us personally, and how do we convey our emotions, again, in that emotional outlet. Yeah. So, we have a good list of things that we already know. Now, if we're thinking about what we're learning about today, what impact does music have on the brain? What are some things that you would like to know at the end of class today? By the end of class. And again, look up at me when you're done. Who can raise their hand and tell me something that they would like to learn about? I know you all wrote down some things. Elise.
I'm curious about the hormone changes in the brain activation that
Oh.
occurs, and maybe the differences between playing music versus singing music versus just listening to it, and then
Yeah.
getting into if it's a group activity or a
Mm-hmm.
lonesome activity.
I like that word, lonesome. That's a really good one. Elizabeth, do you have any answers?
I want to know what their gauge for smarter is. Like what their
Yeah, how are we measuring smartness?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not gonna say what I was just gonna say. Don't listen to me. Yeah. Usually when we talk about smartness, it's in levels of IQ points. And so there's a really interesting study that I have read about that we're not going to learn about right here, but it had to do with the Mozart that I played at the beginning of class. Does listening to Mozart increase IQ points? And so that's a really interesting thing to look at. Yeah. So measuring smartness. Oh, I don't know smartness. I guess intelligence is a word that's actually a word. Yeah. Something that I wonder is what different parts of the brain are activated when we listen to music. You had that too, Elizabeth?
I did.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want you all to take your packet that I gave you. There are 2 articles in here and then a infographic on the last page that when I printed it out, it might be a little hard to read. But what I want you to do is I want us to take 15, we'll start with 10 minutes. And I want us to read through the articles that I've given you here today. Highlight things that are important, maybe some of the things that you talked about in your want to know chart. What parts of the brain are we talking about? What hormonal changes happen when we listen to music? Write your thoughts on the side of the pages. Yeah, we'll take a hot second for you all to read over that. Keep in mind the big picture. I guess I didn't tell you what we're going to be doing. After we finish doing our research, we're going to end up writing a few paragraphs summarizing our learning and connecting to what we've looked at, how music makes us feel, and at the end I want you all to give me an answer based on your own personal opinion. Does music make you smarter, yes or no? So thinking about what we're doing at the end, that's what I want us to look at as we're reading these articles. Let's go. I'll turn on some Mozart in the background so that we can listen as we work. And hopefully that makes us more intelligent. For the record, I will also be doing this because we're going to be doing written conversations after reading, so I will also be one of my friend's partners for this, so I'm also going to partake. it. Stop it.
Let me check it.
Is it still, I think it's still going.
You're good.
This is what I'm doing. The 12 days.
It's gonna be good. Clouds break in the dense fog.
Mm-hmm.
As the sun's going.
I'm pretty sure it's also done. What was this just for?
I haven't seen that so long. What is it?
Macarosa. not already, we might gonna start wrapping up in a couple minutes. Okay. What I want us to do now is take 2 minutes, and individually we're going to fill out the L part of our learn, or our part of our KWL chart, the learn section. And go ahead and look at me when you have at least 1 or 2 ideas on your L chart. Or 4. All right. Who can tell me something that they learned in reading these articles?
I think it's interesting that like listening is beneficial, but like playing is even more so.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it helps your brain develop.
Yeah. They had an analogy in there that said playing sports does more than just watching sports. Yeah, that's a really good point. Elise.
I thought it was interesting that you can engage in musical behavior without actual music,
Mhm.
just with the way you communicate.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to share, Caitlin?
Like a lot of different parts of our brains are working together
Yeah.
at the same time when we play music.
Yeah.
I kept thinking of like all those doctor shows where they would show like all the brain activity and like everything is lit up.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I said is that music, and the second article talked mostly about listening to music, but I think we can apply the same concepts to playing music. But music enhances brain function, not just uses different functions. So it talked about how the brain is a use it or lose it type of, I think, organ. I don't know if it's a muscle or not. But if we're not activating those parts of our brain, then music doesn't just say, oh, this is the part of my brain that's used for music and nothing else is used, like Caitlin was talking about. There's a whole bunch of different parts of our brain that are working together, and when we are listening to or playing music, it helps grow that, like how we have to grow our muscles in the gym. It's kind of the same idea. Alright, so now what we're going to do is I want you all to partner up, and with your partner I want you to choose one of the two articles to look at. We're going to, for our purposes, why don't you all do the second article and we'll do the first article. And what I want you to do is to have a written conversation. So on the back of one of your all sheets, instead of talking out loud, we're going to be writing down our thoughts, and we're going to pass our paper from one person to the next, and we're going to have a conversation on paper. So some things that I want you to think about are using statements such as, I wonder why this happened, or I think it's interesting that I learned this, or I feel this, or I made a personal connection to this. Those types of sentences. So I'm going to give us 6 minutes to have a little bit of a written conversation with our partner. Do you want me to start? I'm on the second page. And when we're doing this, it's okay to have different thoughts than your partner, but if you all can talk about, say Elizabeth wrote down one thing, Elise can respond to what Elizabeth's written instead of just listing another fact that she learned, if that makes sense.
She wants to sit on your lap. Up.
She's being so good. She's entertaining herself. That's true. 2 more minutes left. Alrighty. I hope that you all had some good conversations with your partners. We're going to kind of switch gears and go back to our own individual learning now. I want you all to grab a new sheet of paper, or at least in Caitlin, use the back of your own because I did not grab enough, evidently. So now we're going to work on our own individual writing project for the rest of class. So remember, I want you all to just reflect. There's no prompt. There is a question that I want you to answer at the end of your writing, but there's no rules as to what you have to write about. I just want you to think about what we've learned in our packet and what we've talked about at our discussion at the beginning of class. Think about what you and your partner worked on or talked about, and I want you all to take all of the things that are floating around in your brain and just put them onto the paper. And remember, we're talking about what impact music has on the brain, what what impact music has on the brain, how music makes us feel, how what our personal connections to the music and the reading are, and at the end of all of this, answer the question, does music make you smarter? So I'm going to give us until 8:35 to write. So I will turn on Mozart again.
You were in the middle of a lesson
Okay.
that's being recorded, so just use as few words as possible.
Yeah, feel free to look back at your notes that you wrote, what you highlighted. Quick interruption. I'm so sorry that I am doing this. If you all did not get a chance to look at the infographic and you all are wanting to talk about what parts of the brain are affected by listening to music, there's a really cool picture that points to all of the different parts of the brain and what senses or emotions or things like that are impacted in the brain specifically. So there's a little picture for you. Why don't you elaborate on that? For time's sake, for the recording, I would have them finish their writing and turn them in at the end of class. I want us to debrief a little bit, so why don't we put our pens down?
I was told to elaborate on my part.
What are some big takeaways from what we've learned today?
Listening to and playing music, like singing, performing, can not just like help with brain function, it literally grows your brain.
Yeah. That's the idea of neuroplasticity that the first article talked about. Let's have one more thought before we wrap up.
The first article explains that we can only define music in a general way because it's not semantic and it holds a unique importance to each culture and even each individual.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was interesting that, like, music isn't easily explained, neither is smartness.
Mm-hmm.
So answering the question, does music make you smarter is an oversimplification because there's just so much there at play.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Elise. And I think that brings into like a whole other conversation of music means so many things to so many different people. And oftentimes in America, we think of music through a Western worldview. And we think Mozart, like classical music, is what the peak epitome of music is and should be. When in reality, music came from so many other places that weren't Western Europe. And it started so long ago, and mostly, and this is a whole other conversation like I said, but music was oral and it was passed down through the oral tradition, and it wasn't written down formally like we know sheet music to be. And so there's not really a way to measure like how good music is, or if one type of music has more of a benefit over the other. So like in the infographic, it had 4 different best musics to study to. So classical and jazz are 2 big ones, and then it said music without repetition or silence. And so if we're looking at, does music make us smarter? Okay, well then what type of music makes us smarter? And this infographic argued that there is an argument to be made for silence because people take tests better in what they studied in the environment that they studied. So if you are listening to classical music while you study, you're not going to have classical music while you're taking a test. So it just really is about what works for you. And so that's why I hope that this lesson could help you, again, make personal connections to the music that you listen to and make that mean something in your personal life. So thank you very much. I hope you all, I don't know that real teachers say thank you at the end of their lessons, but I hope you all learned something.